Do you suffer from the debilitating symptoms of chronic pain, swelling, and loss of joint motion due to arthritis? Are you taking drugs like Celebrex and Vioxx or other super aspirin prescriptions? If you are, you're increasing the risk of heart attack and stroke by up to 50%. This is Dr. Tom Roselle, host of Dr. Tom Roselle Live Sundays at 12 noon. Why live with pain or the dangerous side effects of drugs when the doctors at the Roselle Center for Healing, practicing 21st century integrative medicine, can help you experience relief like never before? Simple, safe, chiropractic, acupuncture, and nutritional care can provide significant relief from arthritic pain in less than 6 weeks. More than 70% of our patients experience a return to life far beyond their expectations. Give yourself the best gift possible, freedom from arthritic pain, naturally. Call today to schedule an appointment. Call 703-698-7117 or visit online at rosellecare.com.
Dr. Tom Roselle Live right now on 105.9 FM and AM 630 WMAL.
Welcome to Dr. Tom Roselle Live. This is Dr. Tom Roselle live in studio, 888-630-9625. That's 888-630-WMAL. Love to talk to you on any subject you have in mind. Perhaps you've had a problem, you've tried, you've applied. Well, this is an opportunity for you to figure out how to do it without drugs, without surgery. Wouldn't that be a very nice situation? You've put up for things in your life way too long. Well, here's an opportunity. Let's fix it. Let's do it together. 888-630-9625. Hopefully there was great joy, as it was in our office and among our practitioners, when you saw WIDA on Tuesday night at 8 o'clock and you saw Ageless Health. We were very proud of our guys and the presentations. You got to see 6 patients that were cameoed based on their very chronic diseases where medicine had failed them and they had been given up as can't do anything for you. And through conservative measures, looking at the triad of health, structural, chemical, emotional, and the concepts that we put together over a period of years, they were totally resolved. They were put either in total full remission, as a young woman, 30-year-old was, who had progressive MS, to a little boy who was ADHD and very, very severe in his presentation. It was great. It's going to be aired several more times, so if you haven't had the opportunity to see it, go to WIDA, and I think it's just WIDA.com, and it's channel 26 is their primary. It's also on HD, and you'll be able to find the next airing. As a matter of fact, it was aired this morning at 8 o'clock, and I got to see it a little bit. The first time I saw it outside the studio. I'm delighted. I'm happy, and hopefully you will be too. And send us your comments. We'd love to hear, what you thought. All you have to do is go to rosellecare.com. That's ROSELLECARE, or go to drtomroselle.com. Either one, the messages will get to me. And as many of you know, I answer most all of those emails personally. It takes me a while sometimes because there's so many of you that do write, but I take it as my personal obligation to respond to you whenever I can. Sometimes my staff will respond to you, but nevertheless, if you have commentary, you can always get to me. 888-630-9625, and we're going to talk about several things today, hopefully a lot of things that you want to talk about. But you know what? I was incensed. I got crazy today. I got on my email, and I went to do a couple obligatory postings on our website, and there was an article that was sitting there that was published on Saturday, December the 1st, 2012. That was yesterday, and it was written by Mike Adams, and he calls himself the Health Ranger, and it's editor of naturalnews.com. And it started out by saying, Dr. Oz viciously attacks organic foods and farmer markets, pushes feedlot beef, urges clueless consumers to eat more pesticides and GMO. And his opinion about what that was all about, it was a Time magazine article, and it's really, after I got done reading it, I was not a happy boy. Not even in the least. Why so? Because Dr. Oz is out there purporting that natural therapies need to be considered and that you have to eat well and you have to do certain things. Well, with this vicious attack on organic foods and farmers markets and telling you that, all foods are basically the same, I got a problem. And, the problem is that if this is all true, he sold out to the big manufacturers, declaring that organic foods are elitist, and those were his words, quote unquote, and snooty, quote unquote, and no better than conventional foods. Well, I got a problem with all of that. This man was a guy who was out there that had urged all of us to eat organic. And now he is selling his soul to these huge conglomerates. It's ridiculous. I just can't get my head around it. So here's the deal. Look for Dr. Oz to begin promoting all kinds of things. In my opinion, even GMOs. He's going to cozy up to Monsanto because they have deep pockets. And, when that happens, well, there's a problem. Dr. Oz already irritated me a while back when he started pushing vaccines and talking about how good they were for the public health. I don't think so. When you think about what's going on with Big Pharma and manufacturing of some of these poisons that go into your body, realizing that there's all kinds of heavy metals and preservatives, things like formaldehyde and MSG and aluminum, it says, come on, who's fooling who here? Is it just because he's, a handsome guy out there and he makes for good press, or what's the deal? Is he really stepping up to the plate? Here's the guy who was supposedly behind the quote-unquote real age internet scheme that, recruited people into a promotional network where they were bombarded by drug-pushing ads from Big Pharma. Look, Oz also owns a huge number of option shares in vaccine technology companies, and that's a fact. That's not me telling you that. That's absolutely true. So be real careful who gives you the skinny on some of these things, because the bottom line is you got to be careful. You got to be careful where you get the data. I told you repetitively over the time that we've been doing radio, and that's been for decades now, that question everything and everybody, including me. But in this Time magazine article, Dr. Oz declares that organic foods are elitist. Give me a break. That's my grandmother raised them years ago before it was the thing to do. Elitist considerations are, this is hype. It's hyperbole. It's ridiculousness, and to say the least. So when he comes up with you don't need to eat like 1% of the healthy people, come on, what's that all about? I thought that we were all about trying to clear crap out of our bodies and make ourselves healthier so we didn't have the influences of our environment that will screw up our genetic makeup. And we're going to talk about something called epigenetics today, which is the environmental changes of your gene structure and why some people end up getting sick when there's no reason for it, and some people don't have a problem when they should have. So we need to talk about that a little bit. But, meanwhile, this article, and I want you to go read it. Go to our my blog site. If those of you follow us on Facebook, just go into drtomroselle.com or go into Roselle Center for healing.com, and you can go into our Facebook account, and you can see this whole article, and I encourage you to read it for yourself, because it's like, if it doesn't irritate you, if you're really serious about cleaning up your health and making differences, and this doesn't really totally tee you off, then nothing is going to save your butt as well. When he says nutritionally, there's not much difference between grass-fed beef and feedlot variety, quote-unquote. Come on, give me a break. I mean, any 4-year-old can tell you that there's got to be a difference just the way that they treat them and what they feed them and what they put in their body. Oz has chosen, to line himself up with the size of somebody with deep pockets, as far as I'm concerned. My opinion, by the way. And, when you start seeing a little smoke on the surface, there has to be some underlying reason that occurs. I'd love to have Dr. Oz in my program because I have some real specific questions that I'd like to ask him, but that's not going to happen unless some of you have, an in trying to get him over here, but we'll be glad to do that. But, he's basically making himself irrelevant at this point to the discussion of anything that has to do with nutrition because he doesn't get it. He doesn't understand. I think the guy needs to go back and, start taking some classes in cardiology, or instead of cardiology and nutrition, and really understand the biochemistry behind the things that he's saying. It's ridiculous. At this point, his audience that sits there and applauds him has no clue if they really buy into this stuff. Natural news articles and people like that who are going to tell you the truth and bring out the points that need to be brought out and to you to be aware of. It's as far as I'm concerned, you got to step back. You have to take a look and say, is this man selling out? And who's putting him up there, and positioning him in a way that you're supposed to believe everything that he says. He's the new leader in healthcare. It was Dr. Weil for a while. And, he made some comments over a period of time where I've taken exception to, but nevertheless, most of his stuff is fairly straight up. But, when Dr. Oz says things like, nutritionally speaking, there's little difference. Come on. Little difference between what? And he says, the farmer's market bounty and the humble brick from the freezer case. Dr. Oz, you got an issue, buddy. And I think you need to be talking to me because we're going to have a conversation and we're going to talk about the biochemistry behind some of these things and how it affects your body. And, where is your opinion coming from? Who's manipulating it? Is it someone who's padding your pocketbook? Just a question. I don't know. Inquiring minds want to know. Well, I have a very inquiring mind, and I'd like to know who's feeding you all this garbage and that you have the audacity to get up there and put this out there. 90%, he says 99% diet can be good for you regardless of where it comes from. Come on now. Where are you coming up with this crap? This is like, off the top. I don't get it. 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Obviously, I have an opinion today on a couple different things, and I'd like to hear yours on some other subjects. We're going to talk about something called epigenetics, and it is a very interesting paradigm when it comes to making sure that you're eating properly, and that you're thinking properly, and that you're exercising properly, and, you're living the life of the triad of health. Structural, chemical, and emotional, because those are the things that influence your body. We talked about people like Magic Johnson, who ended up with HIV, and his wife, who never was tested positive. Arthur Ashe, who ended up with HIV and dying of HIV/AIDS, but his wife also never having contracted either the trait or the disease. Why is that? What happens when that takes place? Those are things that you need to consider, understanding that environment has a profound and tremendous influence on the expression of things that we come in contact with every day of our lives. 100% of all Americans above the age of 21 can be tested positive for Epstein-Barr virus, or what they used to call chronic fatigue virus. 100%. That means all of us has come in contact with it at one time or the other. So why is it that some of us get sick and some of us don't? We carry these viral tags in our genetic structure the rest of our lives once we're exposed to them. But some of them express themselves and some of them don't. Why is that? Why is there a difference between one person or the other? Well, this is the whole study of epigenetics. And there's another piece, kind of a sister of it, it's called psychoneuroimmunology. And that's, what runs through your head is expressed in your immune system. And we're going to spend part of the program today talking about these things and kind of showing you what happens when you make certain choices that are health-giving and health-fulfilling, and certain choices that are suppressive and degenerative and cause your body to break down. It's an incredibly important process of understanding, if you will. It's an incredibly important process of making sure that you are knowledgeable and that you understand and that you make sure that you practice on a day-to-day basis. So as we get into the study of epigenetics today, and I want you to understand that what you were given, that hand that you were dealt when you came into this world, isn't necessarily the hand that's going to express itself or win for you or even cause you to lose in life. That it's about your environment and how those genes, those little telomeres, those things that keep you alive and ultimately allow you to, leave our planet, are influenced. And we're going to talk about those influences as significant players in ultimately what our path is in this world. Welcome back. This is Dr. Tom Roselle. You're listening to Dr. Tom Roselle live. I'm in studio, 888-630-9625. That's 888-630-WMAL. Love to talk to you on any subject. We're going to talk a little bit about epigenetics today and things of that nature. However, I want to go to the phones and at least take a couple of your calls because the lines are lighting up. Marie, thank you for calling. How can I help you?
Yes, I'd like to know about high fructose corn syrup and if that also applies to plain corn syrup and what it does to your body.
Okay, well, that's actually a program that we could sit here and talk about for the rest of the day, and it's one that Sue and I have talked about several times over a period of the years. But to go into it just briefly, it's what it is. It's in everything to start with. Okay, it's one of those substances that manufacturing came up with and said, well, it doesn't have as much of an impact on metabolism as other types of sugars. Well, here's the problem. We have tons of additives that are going into a wide array of processed foods, and we're talking about everything from salad dressings to cookies and cakes and breakfast cereals and brand names, boxed everything, and also obviously soft drinks. And the commonplace additive, this high fructose corn syrup, is starting to cause increased risk of things like diabetes and hypertension and hardening of the arteries. And it's one of these dangerous things that has been put on the market simply because of great marketing. The name of what we're talking about, this high fructose corn syrup, is basically in every processed food that you can think about. And, it's being put out there that it's not a big deal, that it transports much more easily in the body. But the problem is that that's not the truth. The food industry has been known forever to put sugar into everything because, it's people like the taste, and it's very addictive and so forth. Cane sugar had been the sweetener of choice until the mid-1970s when, we started seeing other things be put into, and then we went to less expensive sweeteners like corn syrup, and subsequently the high fructose corn syrups were developed. And, then table sugar, which is, by the way, sucrose, is 50% fructose and 50% glucose, and high fructose corn syrup contains up to 80% fructose, which is much more difficult in the body relative to processing. And so you have to begin to look between the lines, and chemically is the thing that we really have to get into, and we don't have that opportunity in today's show, but we will get into it at some point down the line. But let me ask you answer some questions for you, and kind of give you the look at it. And let's attempt to see if high fructose corn syrup is benign food additive, as it's being lobbied by the FDA, or it's actually a dangerous situation across the board. Well, the evidence is this. Cardiovascular disease is the number one killer in the United States. And what they're showing is a direct link between the utilization of this substance and increased risks of cardiovascular disease of all types, but also hypertension and diabetes, particularly type 2 diabetes, and also kidney disease. And the data is becoming one that you can't ignore anymore. So there's a growing sense of urgency today, in the scientific community between the relationship between high fructose corn syrup and other types of medical conditions, or numerous types of medical conditions across the board. So when you begin to see the correlative data between a substance being used in an increased risk or increased presentation of certain types of conditions, you have to take notice. Dietary intake of fructose, particularly what they call high fructose corn syrup, has dramatically increased. We know that over the last several decades. The rate of obesity has gone up, and it's been associated with actually poor lifestyle choices. High fructose corn syrup, as we said, is in everything, and it has a very significant effect on very specific organ systems in increasing the risk of non-alcoholic fatty liver problems, uric acid levels in people, which ultimately leads to something called gout, and degenerative diseases that take place, oxidative destruction within the body, and the complication of diabetes. And we can go on and on and on and talk about these things. But when you're talking about choices and exchanges, Marie, there are so many other things that you have to look at. Patients come in, I don't want them on any kind of sodas whatsoever. But if you're going to do silly things and drink sodas, then you should have just regular sugar in it. Go to a natural soda if you're going to do something that has either organic cane sugar in it, or it has something that is sweetened with honey. Again, you're not going to normally hear those words out of my mouth, but if you're going to have an exchange, that's what you do. If you're going to eat something that is sweet, don't go to the artificial sugars on any level whatsoever. Do something that is a natural sugar, either a pure 100% maple syrup, or you're going to use guava, or you're going to use a little bit of raw organic honey. The natural forms, and at low levels, very low levels. I'm not telling you to eat sugar day in and day out. And then you have to watch. Are you getting too much fruit in your diet and so forth? So one thing is going to be substituted for the other. Again, Marie, this is something that we could talk about for the rest of the day. I hope that was somewhat helpful to you. I really appreciate your calling today. Welcome back. This is Dr. Tom Roselle. You're listening to Dr. Tom Roselle Live. I'm in studio, 888-630-9625. That's 888-630-WMAL. Love to talk to you on any subject that you have in mind. We've been talking about several things, some controversial things, and like to talk about your things. However, I want to get back to the phones, and there was a call, and I wanted to talk to her a little bit about lean cuisine, but apparently, no, he's still there. CJ, how can I help you, sir? Or ma'am?
Hello. Both my wife and I are recovering from major surgeries, and we do not have anyone who can take care of us, so we are forced to kind of eat those bricks, as you're talking about. I've been trying to buy lean cuisine and such to try to help manage our weight and health, and I try to choose the more meat-based, higher protein as opposed to the all-pasta stuff. We've talked about other options like Nutrisystems or even Medifast. What is your opinion? What is our best way to go? Because physically we just cannot do the prep work and the standing in front of the stove necessary to cook whole foods the way we used to.
Okay, well, the thing of it is that most dietary patterns that you need to have to support you are not that difficult to put together. And you don't need to spend more than about 20 minutes from preparation time down the table if you do a little thinking about it beforehand. But let's talk about lean cuisine to begin with. And I'm going to start with a statement that it's better than nothing. And if you got to do something in interim, it's something that you can use, but over a period of time, because of the additives that are in the food, it's not one of those things you want to do, but it's not terrible. The nutritional facts on the label of lean cuisine are not what I'd like to have them, but again, I'll use the term they're not terrible. They're generally low calories. They have a lower amount of salt, sodium in it. However, any kind of salt can imbalance. It depends on whether else you get into it. The portion sizes are measured precisely, so they give you so many calories, but it's more than just calories. You want things that are going to be supportive to your body, that are going to allow you to heal and to recover in a better way. So when you look at anything, look at the side label, and if it looks like a chemistry set, then you know that you got a problem. And because all of those things are going to affect your system, over a period of time, and it's again, if you can get away, if you can use fresh things, if you could use fresh frozen is the next choice. If you can do some things that are quick. For example, Sue and I both work late because we're both in the office all day long, and we rarely eat before 8:30 at night. We're very European in our dining. And, so when we eat, and we eat repetitively through the day, for example, we'll get a small frying pan and put about a 3/4 of an inch of water in it. We bring it to a boil, and then we lay asparagus flat in the frying pan. And then when it blanches, it's ready to eat. And in the meantime, we've got some chicken under the broiler, and we're sitting there talking at the table. It comes out, we put it on the table, we have some asparagus. We already have pre-prepared salad bowl in the refrigerator, so all we do is we take it out, we refresh it every couple of days, and we have asparagus, we have a salad, and we have chicken, and then we put things away. So it doesn't take a lot of time, and we can sit there. We're not on our feet. We're waiting for it to cook, and we do meals like that are very quick because we don't eat carbs at night, but we eat as many vegetables as we can get. So you have some options that. If you begin to take the time and you have somebody that will guide you into some of the preparation of these foods, it can make it a whole lot easier. One of the things that I'm going to encourage you to take is to get a good natural multivitamin. And so you can heal in recovering from any kind of surgery. You want to make sure your vitamin C level is high, and I would take a buffered form so it doesn't irritate your intestinal system. Healing process to keep down the inflammatory levels. If you did nothing more than what's called the old ACEs, ACE and selenium, at moderate doses a couple times a day. Those things will also help you increase your water intake, make sure it's alkaline. Stay away from my mantra, sugar, sodas, coffee, teas, fast food, fried foods, alcohol, gluten, additives, preservatives, because those things are going to cause inflammatory problems within the body and acid destruction with tissue, and your body's just not going to heal. In any kind of surgery, you want to increase your protein intake dramatically because your body has to restore tissue. So if you don't put protein in, you can't repair anything. Sometimes a branch chain amino acid from, Mom's or Healthways or Trader Joe's or something like that, but get a good one, get an organic one, and both you and your wife take that. That will also increase your healing process. Make sure your zinc levels are adequate. So you can take 15 milligrams of a zinc chelate form a couple times a day. That will also increase your body's repair process. So things like that. If we can be of help for you, obviously that's what we do. You can give our office a call. We'll be more than happy to weigh in with you. But hopefully that gives you a little bit of a different direction, a better understanding.
Indeed. Do you have an opinion on Metafast? Because we're also trying to keep our weight down and lose it. I'm sorry?
Yes, don't. I do not like the product. I don't like the substance. I've had it, many people have approached me on it, and the bottom line is don't do it. If you want to lose weight, increase your protein, increase your vegetables, eat multiple times a day.
Right.
And you'll find that just by doing that, you're going to increase your burn rate. You're not going to store fat. You're not going to store carbohydrates, and you'll accomplish what you want to accomplish.
We are already doing the vitamins, and I do take an amino acid supplement. We do make protein shakes from time to time. So we are following a lot of the things you did suggest. Good.
Then keep it up. And like I said, CJ, if we can be of help, give us a call. I really appreciate your phone call. 888-630-9625. That's 888-630-WMAL. Talking about several things. We have several more phone calls, and I'm going to get to you. I want to talk a little bit about epigenetics. Last week I had the pleasure and the privilege of speaking to a wonderful group of people at Falcons Landing out in Sterling, Virginia, and we were talking about the emotional side of healing. And one of the things that I was talking about was epigenetics, and it's an area of study that's come about formally, probably within the last 10 years or so, but unofficially forever. And what I mean by that is, when you look at the body and its expression in life, there are many different things that come into consideration. When we talk about genetic expression, we talk about what's inherited from our parents to us, but also what allows those genes to actually step up to the plate. Some people are predisposed to cancers and never have cancer. Some people are predisposed to cardiovascular disease and never have a problem. Why is that? Why don't they have the problem show up and other people do? Well, that's the whole study. And what we also know is that environmental stimulation of any kind, whether it's repetitive injury, whether it's living with pain, whether eating the things that we shouldn't be eating, whether we're emotionally so locked up that we don't have the tools to deal with our emotional slings and arrows, those things have an impact on what our body does over time, whether or not we in fact maximize our genetic pathways. There was a study years ago by a guy by the name of Thomas Ballantyne, MD. He's a guy that was one of the original guys that studied in the area of functional medicine, meaning nutrition. And in the middle of his book, there was probably 30 pages of pictures comparing one sibling to another, somebody who had been in their country, and we'll, just for sake of argument, we'll say where my parents came from in Sicily, right? And they lived off the soil. They ate natural foods, and they took pictures of these people when they were there, and then they took pictures of these people when they came to Western culture, and then the eating of modified foods and living in polluted areas and so forth. The stark difference between how people looked when they were in an environment of low stress, an environment of low stress eating and supportive nutritional habits, compared to what happened when they came into Western culture, was absolutely amazing. In some cases, you wouldn't recognize twins who were separated. One came to West, one stayed there. Sometimes you wouldn't recognize the person who had started out there as a young person and then migrated or immigrated to another part of the world. We are subject, if you will, to our environment on every level, no matter what it is, whether it is the foods that we eat and the substances that we put in the food, or the things that we don't put in foods, eating organically, eating supportively, where it comes from in the world, the stress levels that we put ourselves under, the injury patterns that never clear up or that we put up with over a period of time, and we never maximize our capacity. When this takes place, we don't maximize our health. We don't maximize what happens to us. Let's go to the phones. Susan, how can I help you? I'm sorry that I let you sit there such a long time.
That's okay. Hello. I have a question. My son has a mitochondrial disorder, and it's pretty severe. He has epilepsy, autism, and very weak muscles, hypotonia. He takes a lot of strong medicines, Topamax, Keppros, Amisimide, Risperdal, and what I'm concerned about is two things. One, seeing if there's anything that I can do to support the healthy mitochondria, and the other thing, protect his liver. Do you have any advice on that?
Without knowing your son, I can only be very general, but the short answer is there's many things that can be done, Susan. First of all, with mitochondria needs to be supported. Mitochondria, first of all, is the one tissue in the body that it's the energy pack, if you will, of all cells, and it is the one that is, its characteristics are directly genetically inheritable from mom to the child. So he's got your DNA relative to mitochondria. Mm-hmm. And so you look at a lot of different things when it comes to that expression. When you talk about genetic modifications, we're talking about the subject that we're talking about today, which is epigenetics. But to answer your question specifically, is there things that you can do? Yes. Dietary patterns have to be perfect. They have to be clean because the liver's already struggling. So you want to make sure that you're not overloading the different phases of metabolism within the liver, particularly what we call phase 1, which is the major cleanup guy in the liver. It takes all the garbage that we're putting in. So we want to eliminate anything except for natural supportive foods. And we want to make sure that we're flushing the liver with a lot of clean water and those types of things. Each case is going to be different. Coenzyme Q10 is critical with support of any mitochondrial function. And if we don't do that, then the mitochondria begins to break down. In people who have heart disease and so forth, they can actually go into cardiac failure because of lack of that, and some of the drugs that we take that deplete the coenzyme Q10 from the mitochondria. So dietary patterns are number one critical. I would eliminate any kind of gluten from your son's diet simply because it's so genetically modified today. Our gluten substances have up to 10 times as much gluten in them than we had 25, 30 years ago. So they're not the same, and they don't have the nutritional components. The more colorful types of vegetables are going to be the more supportive. Why? Because they have the greatest amount of mineralization in the body. So you want to give him as much as that. Easily digested proteins. Now, for us in our practice, I'd have to know more about your son. I'd need to know about his blood type and your background. Also, we'd have to look at all the interactions of the chemistry, meaning the drugs that he's taking. So there's much that can be done. If you had the opportunity, and if you don't, please watch it, the WIDA presentation on our work, what we look at is how the body actually expresses itself and what environmental suppressions, toxins that are being, the patient's being exposed to all the time. You take those things out, you allow the body to begin to express itself. So there's what we're talking about with you is not a simple answer, but it's one that has a lot of merit relative to exploration. And my feeling just from what you've said, there's so much more that can be done for your son nutritionally, but I don't know his case, so I'm in a tough spot telling you exactly what to do because I need to know a whole lot more. I'm sorry I can't be more specific, but I'll do this with you. If you will write me at rosellecare.com, and I will ask you some very, very specific questions, then I would tell you what I would do if it was my child and what things that I would search out, and if there's something that we can do, I would tell you that as well. Is that fair?
Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for your help.
You're welcome, Susan. Thank you for calling. Welcome back. This is Dr. Tom Roselle. You're listening to Dr. Tom Roselle Live. We've been in studio broadcasting to you from 105.9 FM and AM 630 WMAL, just like we do every Sunday at 12 noon. Make sure you listen to us. Put it on the calendar. Don't miss these programs. It gives you the opportunity to learn something, and if nothing else, to irritate you enough so you go do your own research. That's why I'm here. That's my mission, is to get you to think and take control of your own health. By the way, remember my book, Ageless Health. Health is a do-it-yourself program. You are the captain of that ship. And by the way, if you'd like a copy of it, Christmas is coming up. It makes for a great gift. Also, you can get a combo. You can get my book and the audio version. Just go to rosellecare.com. That's ROSELLECARE.com. And by the way, while you're there, take a look through our B&B section, our business-to-business section, and click into some of our sponsors and see what they have cooking as well. We do that for you. We try to get some of the best products, and we do one at a time. You won't see anything on there that I won't use myself. So go to rosellecare.com. Before we get started and talk a little bit more about epigenetics, I've had Joan sitting there for a long time. Joan, how can I help you?
Hi, I'm not sure if this is part of the program.
Doesn't matter.
I had cervical cancer about 6 years ago now, and I get tested every 6 months just to make sure that everything is fine. And it's been fine for 6 years, and my latest results came back abnormal with significant changes, and I'm just wondering how that. I'm a marathon runner. I eat well. I'm super health conscious. I feel like I do all of the right things, but I'm wondering whether there's something in my genetics that will make this a problem for me for
Joan, it can be a multitude of things. I have patients that come in to see me all the time that are very athletic, and on the surface they think they eat well, but you have to look at the entirety of the structural, chemical, emotional base, number one. And we don't have time to really get into it in depth, but I'll be more than happy to talk to you online as well. So okay. You have to look at your history, your background, your environment, what you're exposed to, the stresses that you're under. You have to look at the nutritional balances. You may be, because you're an athlete, you may be burning things up at a higher rate than your needs are in your body, so you're stealing from one part of your body to another. Exercise is a stress. It's a good stress. It's eustress, but it also, in the light of other types of things, can also be a bad stress if it's not balanced properly. So you have to look at that. Your cortisol, your DHEA, your good estrogens, all those things, and your bad estrogens have to be looked at in balance and see what they actually say. And then modifications made accordingly. Your energetics may have never recovered fully, from that. So there's more than just a test coming back looking abnormal or normal. When a test comes back abnormal, even though that you may not have a symptom, it says, hey, there's a problem here, and it needs to be addressed. The way we look at things from structural, chemical, emotional, and then looking at the nervous system and blood supply and so forth, is a very, very different approach. But as I said, we're coming up to the end of the program. If you give me a heads up, go to rosellecare.com. I'll be more than happy to go back and forth with you. I'm sorry we don't have more time to get into it. We're here every Sunday trying to give you ideas, try to provoke you to do your own research, try to get you to step up to the plate, to really take control of your own health, because really that's what it's all about. Don't let anybody else tell you what to do. Make your own decisions based on knowledge and information. Doing that empowers you. Doing that gives you the opportunity to change virtually anything. My choice, my belief is, as long as you're breathing, you have the opportunity to change. This is Dr. Tom Roselle. See you next week.
Did you know that breast cancer is on the rise and that routine annual mammograms can increase radiation exposure to breast tissue 1,000 times over a chest X-ray? The result could increase the risk of developing breast cancer. Now, consider a simple, non-invasive, and totally safe adjunct medical procedure approved by the FDA, which can detect evidence of breast cancer 5 to 8 years before it can be visualized on a mammogram. Infrared thermographic imaging can accurately detect initial signs of breast cancer, such as increased blood supply, and metabolic rate, which is recorded as heat. Why expose yourself to radiation when accurate and safe medical detection is available? Call Thermography Centers at 888-485-7736. That's 888-485-7736. And for more information, visit thermographycenters.com.
The Roselle Center for Healing is a proud supporter of breast cancer awareness and reminds you to conduct a monthly breast self-examination and include a thermographic breast scan as part of your annual wellness checkup.